The riders today are moving out from Saint-Etienne. You see on the right-hand side of your screen those mountains. The blue bit, by the way, is either Switzerland or Italy. I'm not quite sure of my geography, but on the edge of Italy. Then we go up into Switzerland. But the blue bit is not water, and the mountains are lying ahead of these riders at the moment. They are Aus and Loder, who broke away after 73 kilometres of racing today. That's the Casino rider on the front, Aus, and behind in the bluish coloured jersey is Lauda. Both these two riders are the domestiques of their teams, and as we thought, excuse me saying rabbits, but they've allowed some of the lowly placed riders to drift off the front. They went about 73 kilometres, and the gap now is 3 minutes and 55 seconds. There, up on your screens, looming up ahead of them is the Alps and the massive crowd on the Alpe d'Huez. We've just driven up the climb, the 21 virage, the 21 bends that takes the riders to the top of this famous climb, first climbed in 1952 by Fausto Coppi, and I'm sure we're going to see the Italians yet again trying to win today. Interesting enough, Stephen Roche is sat here beside me. Over the years we've seen the Dutch dominate the climb up the Alpe d'Huez, and the fair chance is that this bunch will come back together and explode at the bottom of the Alpe d'Huez, because it's pretty flat from now on in. But the Dutch have won in 1976, Zoetemelk, Kuiper in 1977, Kuiper again 78, Zoetemelk in 79, Winnen in 83 and 81 and 83, and then Rooks in 88 and Tunisia in 89. And in those days, when you'd go up the Alpe d'Huez, you'd see nothing but Dutch flags, and the Dutch were out there en masse. But I've never ever seen so many flags and people with face decorations and Viking helmets and chanting away from Denmark. Have you, Stephen? It's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, is anybody left? It's only a small nation with about, I don't know, 5 million populations. I mean, I think 4 million of them are here.
Well, in the last couple of years, Alpe d'Huez has been more or less baptised as being a Dutch mountain now, because you get, over the last number of years, you always had it was populated by mainly Dutch people. But I must say today, I've never seen so many people, not alone Danish people. I've never seen so many people on Alpe d'Huez. Normally you have the first steep ramp, you normally get a lot of people, then it dies down a bit, and you get it again towards the top. Whereas today, right from the start to the very, very top, there's like lines of people like lying 4 or 5 deep and 10 deep in some places. I've never seen so many people kind of abusing their bodies with different color paint schemes. Like I've seen people down the way, like with their tops off them, all painted in orange, and other guys all painted in red. It's all great for cameras. I'm sure later on in the program, the cameras, I'm sure, will pick up some of these artists, as you could call them. But I've never seen so many people on Alpe d'Huez, never.
4 minutes and 5 seconds for these two riders. Went away at 73 kilometres, that's just inside 50 miles on a course today, taking them from Saint-Etienne to the Alpe d'Huez, 203 kilometres in all. That's 120 miles. Now, Stephen, you're just saying that what a great sight it's going to be for the cameras when they come uphill, that festivity. I certainly agree 100%. I've never seen like it, but it's some way before we get there. And we have people watching now and people switching on later on. It's on the flat now. I feel there's a fair chance these two are going to be caught, and then just put people in the picture about this tremendous Alpe d'Huez, this final climb of what, 14-15 kilometres. Just describe it from your point of view, having ridden up it both strong and weakly.
Well, it is a climb which is fairly unpredictable. Like it's possibly one of the most feared climbs in the Alps, because even though it only lasts some 13 kilometres and the foot of it is the most steepest, it's neither a climber's hill nor a strongman's hill, because a climber, like, it's probably more for a climber than actually a rider like Rees or a rider like Ulrich, because on the steep parts a climber can get a good rhythm going, and what actually breaks the rhythm for the normal climber, the likes of Rees or Ulrich, is the fact that the corners are flat. So you're pedaling with a small gear up these steep little climbs, and all of a sudden you're going to flat, so you're changing your rhythm, you're around the corner, and you're going up steep again. So that does not suit a big gear rider or a strong rider, which is not necessarily a pure climber like Virenque or Pantani. So I once, when I had the yellow jersey in '87 on the tour, I actually lost it to Delgado here on Alpe d'Huez by losing by a minute or so to Delgado. On another day in Alpe d'Huez, I arrived in the foot of the Alpe, at Bourdman with the likes of Bernard Hinault, Lucien Van Impe, Zotemelk, Van de Velde, all the big guys in the all the good mountain climbers. And it was my first time actually to be riding so well in the mountains. In '83, I was riding with Robert Miller and the Pewter team, and I was just so happy to be there. I wasn't eating enough, and arrived in the foot of Alpe d'Huez, and I just blew a gasket. I lost 22 minutes from the bottom of Alpe d'Huez up to the top, which is only some 14 kilometers.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So anything can happen. Like it's the crowds do encourage you on, but the main problem, and I can see a problem today, is that for riders who are going to be attacking, there's so many people on the road. They come in on top of you nearly. It's nearly claustrophobic nearly on the riders. The motorbikes riding in the front, I reckon, will not be able to keep the people back far enough to. I hope it doesn't hinder the race in any sense, because it's going to make it very difficult for anybody to attack or for overtaking on it. So it's going to be, I think when we get here, the likes of Pantani and Viahanke, there's going to be fireworks. But I just hope that the people now, I've never seen so many people here in Alpe d'Huez, so I just hope there's not going to be any kind of a congestion as regards motorbikes and in the front, or lead cars, or anything else getting in the rider's way.
Now then, Stephen, we had the time trial yesterday, which was just absolutely mind-blowing, the way that Ulrich rode, and a lot of the top men in the top 20 or 30 places would also ridden their skulls out yesterday to go as hard as they could. You see now the Mercato and Uno team are on the front here trying to set up for Pantani when we got the climb. But what's it like suddenly coming from a time trial on a stage like this with a following wind? It's very fast. We had a bit of a climb to begin with. These two riders go away. I mean, how are the legs going to be?
Well, I think it's really an accumulation of things, because the first few days right down through Normandy, Brittany, right down as far as the Pyrenees, it was very, very difficult. It was very, very dangerous, because we saw a lot of crashes. It was going very, very fast, and riders are very, very tired, nervously and physically when they got to the Pyrenees. Then the Pyrenees was very, very hard. There was I'd never seen the stage into Andorra. I've never seen so many climbs in such a short period. In the last 40 kilometers, I've never seen so many climbs, but they all got over that. Then they had a rest day, and then they had a very, very hard time trial yesterday. So it's going to be very interesting to see Viahanke and Pantani, because in my opinion yesterday, Viahanke went really into the red. Like when he was caught by Ulrich in the final 15 kilometers, he really hung on in there to try and limit the time lost on Ulrich, which gave him a better place on the stage. He brought him to second place on the stage, where normally should have finished maybe fourth or fifth. So it'll be interesting to see now when we arrive on the foot of Alpe d'Huez if Viahanke has recovered totally, because he made a very, very strong effort yesterday. I would say Pantani here. If you remember 2 years ago, Dave, in the Tour, Pantani did the very same thing. There's a group at the front, and his Carrera team at the time rode in the front to get him across to as close as he can to the breakaway group, because Pantani can afford to give the group in the front, say, 3.5 minutes. But over that, it's making it difficult for him to pull it back on the Alpe d'Huez alone. So Mercato and Uno here are kind of showing their colours here. They're showing their cards. They're saying to Ulrich and everybody else, like, you know, I want to win a stage here, so I'm going to go. So it's actually helping out the Telecom team, really, because it means that Telecom have not got to ride on the front, and it means Ulrich will have more teammates around them, fresher than they would have been if they had to ride behind that front group.
Well, Pantani won here in 1995. The time we went up before, 1994, was Conti. 1992, Hampson, who's retired from the scene now, and in 1991 it was Gianni Bugno, who's also taking a bit of a back seat now and just doing the sort of advisory bit for his team. He also won in 1990, so really we're looking for a new kid on the block, although this is the man who I think is desperately keen to have his second double on the climb. So Bugno's won a couple of times here. We've had Vinland win here a couple of times. Kuiper's won here a couple of times. Zotemelk's won here a couple of times. So it does, knowing the course, winning on here, Steve, have any sort of way in which you know next time you come up what to do, and you've got that sort of enthusiasm. If you won it once, does it sort of help you on again?
Oh, definitely. Alpe d'Huez, if you don't know it, it can be a big mistake. So the riders here will know the call. They'll probably have been over it in training before the Tour de France, but because they've raced on it before, they will have their the certain areas on it where they know, okay, 2 years ago I got to this distance here, I was in the front group, I was in the second group, I was feeling good or I was feeling bad. Okay, this part here I can go hard as far as there, because I know once I get to the 5th kilometre or so, it gets a little bit easier, so I can recuperate a little bit. So it's very important to know the climbs, and a climb like Alpe is, like I say, I lost 1 minute one year and 22 minutes another year. So when you know what the climb is like, it can help you kind of limit the losses and lose as little time as possible.
Well, certainly the challenge will be out in force on the climb as well. I think most of the Pantani fan club are here. His father is also here. His father came out a couple of days ago with the camper van and found himself a nice spot. I didn't actually see his father, but I found a Pantani look-alike on the side there, shaved head and everything. Unbelievable what lies ahead of the Tour de France riders on this stage into Alpe from Saint-Etienne. This rider on your screen now is one of the two riders in the lead on this stage, the Tour de France, going through on the 13th stage. Unlucky for some, I think. We're going through Grenoble at the moment, the main pack is, and the two men down the road. A lead around about 4 minutes and 5 seconds on the main group, which includes all the favourites. We had a bit of a crash further on down the road, and Colombo was one of those that came down. I think it was Baldato also came down. We had a few people fall off, but they've all got back in again now, and no real problem as far as they're concerned. So the team on the front, Mercato Nuno, trying to put that gap back so they can climb the mountain together, carrying with them Pantani, who has got his father waiting somewhere up on the mountainside for him, and they'll be looking down the mountain with bated breath to see these people come through. A lot of chaps here riding away on the front, working very hard indeed, will absolutely just grovel up the mountain once they get to the bottom. Their job is to get the field intact down to the bottom. In fact, I remember many years ago watching a young Miguel Indurain doing the same thing along here and riding himself into oblivion, and I think was that when Pedro Delgado was riding the same team? Was it the old Reynolds team or something? I remember this young Indurain on the front, and virtually they got to the bottom at Bourg-Grosson. He peeled off, and he was almost going to fall into the ditch at the time. But really, some of these chaps we've seen on the front have had their work cut out. Except today, Stephen, the wind is behind, isn't it?
It is, yeah, so it makes it a little bit easier. We just saw Richard Virenque getting back on there. While we were off air there at the commercial break, he actually punctured, so his whole team waited for him and brought him back on. We just saw him there getting back on there with his whole team. They'll probably bring him now to as far as they can to the front to keep him out of danger and give him plenty of shelter.
Well, here we are in Grenoble. It's a modern university city, and just to the right and left, the magnificent big mountains, the massives of the Vercors and the Chartreuse to the west and the north. And of course, the higher peaks of the Belladone in the east, where they're heading off now, these two riders who might be caught. To come to this part of the world, just take a little trip up to Voiron, by the way, because just northwest of Grenoble, that's where the famous potent yellow Chartreuse liquor comes from. It's based on a very secret herbal elixir recipe from the monks of 1605. I think I should need it. I'll get to the top of the Alpes coming up here. Thank you, by the way, for all the facts that have been flying in to us on our rest day and the letters that have been going to riders. I understand that Richard Virenque has had 407 letters as at the rest day. The riders have received 2,580 letters so far, and 120 of the riders in the field have had these letters. They come through the special Dyna post. Second behind Richard Virenque is Cedric Vasseur with 165, Laurent Jalva 124, Frederic Moncas on 79, Luc Leblanc 59, Jan Ulrich 55, and I've got a few faxes in. I think you've got one too, haven't you, Stephen?
I just got a nice little fax here in from Newark Castle Cycling Club from Dave Miller. Dave, you're listening out there, thank you very, very much for your fax, and it's in conjunction with your club's 50th dinner party this year on November 15th. And I'd like to just going to add to that, Dave. At the moment I have, you've asked me to try and collect some items which you can auction off at their dinner. I've just acquired a World Championship jersey of Johan Museeuw, signed, and I'll have it for you in November for the auction. And by the way, Dave, I've been invited for the last while, but I have an invitation here for yourself as well.
Right.
So if you're not doing anything on on November 15th, you're also welcome to come along to the Newark Castle Cycling Club 50th dinner party.
I remember, Nuke, they were the people. We organised the first town centre criterium there. Now, we're going to talk about things here, ladies and gentlemen, while watching these two riders go, backtracking backwards and forwards, just to put you in the picture about things that happen, because these two riders on their own, a leader of so 4 minutes, will do what they have to do. But Dave Miller, certainly, I remember the pro crits in the cobbled market. What happened? Now, this is interesting. I was in charge of the Carlton Cycle side at the rally at the time, and we had the Carlton racing team, and we had this inquiry from Newcastle. The Rotarians, they'd had the Roundheads and the Cavaliers, they'd had donkey racing, they'd had jousting, all sorts of things to raise money for charity. And it was the Rotarians, or Round Tables, what it was, that they had put these things on every year, and they said, look, we would like to run a bike race. This was the Round Table lot, and we would like to run it in the centre of town. I said, yeah, we were happy to sponsor it. We'd like to do it just down the road from Nottingham, but how can you close the town? They said, well, we're Rotarians. He's the chief of police. He's the chief of this, and he's that, and he's in charge of the engineering. And they all sat there, all these chaps, said, right, if you can close the town down, we'll have a bike race. And we put the money up. They closed the town down, and all the money from the programme sales, the advertising, we sponsored it at Rally, and they collected the money. Unfortunately, it poured with rain. My good friend, the late David Saunders, came along and did the commentary for us. Now, once that happened, in Nottingham, not far down the road, Maurice Pound, who was the director of the toy side of Rally, said, these chaps in Newark can't do that and beat us. We Rotarians in Nottingham will now close down Nottingham. I said, OK, can you do it? He said, yes, have a meeting in the town hall. So I had a meeting in the town hall. There was the chief of police, chief engineer, so all Rotarians, we'll close the town down if you'll sponsor the race. So we did the same thing again. Alan Rushton saw it. He said, this is an idea. We'll have the Kellogg City Centre races. And from those two things, and Dave and the Newark Cycle Club way back in mid-70s, that's where those city centre races came from.
And we all know after that they went down for a number of years then, sponsored by Kellogg's and different other sponsors. And I must say they were an incredible success. And Alan Rushton and his Sport for Television crew did an incredible job there. And of course, Alan Rushton then went on then to get stages out the Tour de France in Brighton and Portsmouth. He has the Leeds Classic. He had the Brighton Classic. He's also involved now in the Tour de France starting in Ireland in 1998. So once again, Dave, just let you know now, if you're listening into us here, I have acquired Johan Musio's World Championship jersey signed for the evening. So I know you're inviting some corporate people in to help pay for the dinner, to make this dinner a big success, with it being his 50th anniversary at the club. So I have another week to go yet, so I'll try and accumulate a few more things, maybe even a polka-dot jersey from Vir Hank maybe yet. So I'll do my best, and wish you the best of luck in the organisation, and look forward to meeting yourself next week as you're coming over here for the tour, and meeting the club on November 15th.
We look forward to that too. I hope I can make it. I haven't got my diary here to check the date out, but I think the same or similar facts has also been sent to Eurosport, not got through to me at the moment. On the city centre races, by the way, to look at these two lads here now riding heavily and hard towards the finish and helping themselves to all sorts of sharp drinks to keep them going. Did you win that one in Dublin when it poured with rain? I certainly remember you riding with Sean Kelly, and the whole thing erupted when you took off.
Well, actually, I should have won it, because I was the only one that didn't fall off.
Everybody
fell off, and they all lost a lap or 2 laps. I was the only one that did not lose a lap. Actually, there's your Monsieur there in his World Championship jersey. Dave, that's a jersey I'll have for you on November 15th.
Well.
Anyway, no, the race in Dublin was a fabulous race, all right. I was the only one that didn't fall off, so I should have officially won it, but because Sean Kelly won the sprint at the end, we'll get with the Sean Kelly. So that was me out of luck, you know.
I remember that, because afterwards, on the way through there, I went to wet my whistle and had a sharp lemonade. Well, it looked like lemonade, but rather dark brown at the time, a little bar on the corner, and when I was in there, we discovered it was a racing cyclist who had been one of the early grass track champions in Ireland. He showed me all his pictures and everything else, so when I was doing the public address, I mentioned his name over the air. Anyway, when we went back, the pub was heaving. Come in, boys, thank you for that, come on, sit down, have a drink. I had a great time, absolutely hilarious. So if you're going to Tour de France start in Dublin next year, book your tickets now, get yourself organised, because it's going to be an enormous party and some very serious bike racing and some very good countrysides and very hospitable people, and I certainly am looking forward to it.
From talking to the followers of the Tour de France this year. Like initially when it was launched that Ireland's going to host the start of the Tour de France next year, we felt there might be maybe a little bit of a negative reaction from the caravan, from the people involved in the organisation and everything else. And it's amazing the positiveness of everybody involved in Tour de France. You know, everyone's kind of saying, well, is it possible to come a few days earlier? Or if I come a few days early, can you give me some good addresses where I can go and have a good night out or whatever? So the interest and enthusiasm of the people here, everyone involved in cycling, whether it be in the caravan, whether it be in the press, everybody is really, really enthusiastic about coming over, and I'm guaranteeing them a good time.
Well, this is not the Alpe d'Huez. It happens to be a special little bridge that they built for the road for the cars to go over the top of a junction, as you see on your screen now. And I thought they ought to put a preem line at the top for the first man to go over the top of it, but not so. It's just a way in which they go across the top of the water and over the top of a junction below and come down the other side. This stage, the Tour de France, then taking the riders 203 kilometres a day, it's 120 miles, and the flat bit is ahead of them now before it suddenly goes up into mountain, the Alpe d'Huez. Still two riders in the lead at the moment, Loda and Aus, and we'll be seeing them shortly on the screen. The wind is very much a bit behind them earlier on, but as they're swinging round now, it's coming slightly cross, but still it's enough, I think, for them to maintain a fair old rate of knots. You can see how they're strung out now. This is probably if you get a bit of a crosswind, Stephen, it must be able to break it up, particularly if you've been grovelling and finding hard to keep the speed up, because it's rocketed. We started at an average is only 41.7 kilometres per hour. The second hour they did 45.9 kilometres per hour, 46 kilometres per hour, and they're still going at about the same speed. So 46 k's is pretty quick.
It is, it's very fast. You can see here now that bit of damage that little kind of humpback bridge there did to the peloton. When once they got over it, they got the wind on the side and strung them all out. You can see here now once again they have those traffic islands in the middle of the road. They cause havoc in the peloton in the early parts of the race, but thank God now they've been the riders now are more settled, and we haven't seen crashes now for the last few days. So for traffic crashes because of traffic islands. I mean, so about 50 kilometres to go now, Dave.
And the field, and here we are, 49 coming down all the time. Well, they're going quickly now, but it'll suddenly come to a grinding halt. We've been talking about the letters that come in, over 407 so far, Richard Barong. The faxes have been coming through to Stephen and myself. Now, I've got one here, by the way, Stephen. That lovely chateau in the background, the Chateau de Vizille. It said that... Hi there, this is from a fellow Jim Lee from the Aston Science Park in Birmingham. Oh, you're all right then, kid. Don't say if you come from Birmingham like me, Jim Lee, but if you do, I'll speak your languages. They call me Brummy. Anyway, he said, in my wardrobe from many years ago, before I got into a motorcycle, hangs a cycling jersey, a replica, which is part yellow, part green, part polka dot, with a little bit of red here and there. He said, I think it was a Jack of Trade jersey from 1987, and it's got Toshiba written on the arms. Could you and Stephen shed any light on the history and demise of this classification, and how were the points awarded? Well, this, of course, was the combined. Yeah. When this combined the Kingdom Mountains, the points, the
yellow jersey. Yeah, it's those three together.
And wasn't the red one the catch sprints?
That's right,
in those
sprints,
days?
yeah, intermediate sprints, yeah.
So they put them all together, and it got so confusing, didn't it, with all these jerseys in the end?
It got so confusing, but it also took too long to film them all on the finish line. That's why the Tour de France have actually increased the payment from the main sponsors. They've given them more kind of television, more profile, and on the finish line now, every day at the finish, they will only have the green, yellow, and the Mountains jersey. And there's no other jerseys in the Tour de France at the moment, even though they have a Best Young Riders competition sponsored by Alcatel, and they have also the Combativity Award sponsored by Coeur de Lion. Those presentations are made the next morning at the start of the race on the start rostrum.
And they don't have any jerseys going with it. One time the young rider, I think, had a white jersey or something too, didn't he?
Yeah.
So it was very confusing, so many jerseys, but they simplified it now. And so, Jim Lee, you've got something there which I would suggest you might like to frame and stick up on your wall or something for the future, because it's obviously going to be a collector's item eventually. You're saying here that on Sunday when he wore the Stars and Stripes, did I notice the absence of his racing numbers? What's the penalty for that? I didn't notice the absence of his racing numbers, and whatever it cost Mario would pale in its insignificance with about the thick end of £500,000 that he earns every year. And he says here there must have been an advert in the Mail on Sunday. Does Chris Boardman owe his success to eating Jacob's Figs Roll? I mean, that my mind boggles on that. I think if you eat too many Jacob's Figs Roll, it wouldn't make it go fast. Well, thank you for all these faxes, by the way. I've got another one here, as they're all together. Yes, I can go back this one. This is from Kevin Hodges from Charlegrove in Oxfordshire. And he said he put the satellite system in last year for Eurosport because, of course, there's no subscription, by the way. If you're watching around a friend's house now or know some of the clubmen tape the stages and show them at the club room at night, when you've got your disc, by the way, then you don't have any reason to... I'm just waiting. It looks like it's 5 minutes lead, I think, now. Well, last one we saw was 4:20. Anyway, going back to the club lads who record it and then show it at the club room later on, if you do want to get yourself a dish, once you've got the dish, there is no subscription to Eurosport. It comes free out of the sky, and if you don't like the English commentary, as some people prefer to listen to German or the French, you can do it. You can just get it retuned, no trouble at all. And he said that he's been watching the tour for many years on holidays in France, and he first found Eurosport, this is good, on the cross-channel ferries, and had great difficulty getting me off the boat. He'd be quite happy to sit there in the bar watching the coverage as he trundled to and from Cherbourg. Well, at least thank you for that then, for the Kevin Hodges. And he's asking, can we confirm that Beltran and Alonso are riding for Banesto? The answer is yes. Is Roux riding for TVM? The answer is yes. Is Kummer riding for Telecom? The answer is no. The reason is that, and also Luttenberger, Roos, Stevens, Vanderbroek, yes, they're all riding. He's entered this special competition from cycling where they had 13,000 entries, Steve. I don't know if you saw it, but you can have your own dream team. You're given so much money to select the riders, the climber, domestics, the sprinters, and you make the team from a list of names printed. Well, of course, as you know, the 11th hour, when they sign on, they make substitutes and some people don't ride. And he asked me where he can get the teams from. The answer to that one is, if you're living in Oxfordshire somewhere, Charlegrove, possibly you can nip down to Oxford and phone up to, say, W.H. Smith or something. Some of the major newspaper sellers, like W.H. Smith, in a big place like Oxford, do have lay keep. And you can phone them and say, look, will you keep lay keep for me and I'll come and collect it later on. And you'll get the list in lay keep. It comes at least one day late. That's one way of doing it. And also, if you get to somebody who's got one of these links on the website, there is a www.stop Latour, all one word, sorry, Latour, L-E-T-O-U-R, all one word with small l, .ff, and that will actually plug you into the announcements being made by the tour organisers, and I'm pretty sure if you work your computer and whiz it backwards and forwards, you should be able to find the start list from that as well. But I haven't tried it myself, but that's what it is. A lot of stuff is available on the web now.
I even have my own site on the web myself, Dave. I have my own training camps and everything else on the internet at the moment, which is www.s.roche.com. So it's up on the internet at the moment, and it's I have my training camps. I'm also doing a bike which is coming out in September, and there'll be a video coming out of my career also in September. So to coincide with 10 years after the 10 years after my triple victory Giro, Tour and World Championships.
Tops to speak to you shortly, won't it?
Yeah. It's a bit of publicity for myself, Dave.
Oh, is it? Oh, I'd never have known. Well, there they are. They're running out of Grenoble now on this flat run-in before we get to Bourg-Boison and the big climb up the other side. The field very well all together. And one question that Keith Hodges did ask me, he said last year at one point looked like a punch-up between the riders and the motorbikes. Did anything happen afterwards? In fact, at the end, the Tour de France organisers had a chat to everybody concerned, and no, there's no animosity between them, and the riders recognise the motorcyclists have a job to do, and they really have come throughout the whole of the tour so far without anybody falling out. Thanks also to Peter Brown for his faxes about Barry Hoban and about Alec Taylor. I got them and I used both of them, and you may not have heard it, Peter, but thanks for that too. By God, it's coming thick and fast today, isn't it? Looks like a bit of a puncture here, Stephen. I looked up and saw that the Telecom team had gone back.
Was it Reese? Reese changed his bike, Dave. He changed his bike. He's taking me on as a lighter bike now, specifically for Alpe d'Huez. So I think Reese still has some ambition, Dave, from the looks of it, because like changing his bike like that for a co-leader, like it's getting a bit tight. So I say he must still have some kind of ambition himself.
Well, with a number of Danish people who are up there in the climbs, in the corners, on the straights of the Alpe d'Huez, certainly his team taking it back now. They'll need a lot of excitement later on. The field still stringing along, chasing after our two breakaway riders who went away after 73 kilometres on this, the 13th stage of the Tour de France, from Saint-Etienne to the famous, or should I say the infamous, Alpe d'Huez. First climbed in 1952 when Fausto Coppi romped up to take the stage victory. There was a great gap after that, after 52. They didn't go up there again until 1976. And it was made possible in the first instance by the way in which the ski resorts have developed the roads, because before they were just tracks for mountain goats, sheep farmers, and the hardy people who went trekking up in the mountains, hiking during the summer, or lugged their skis up during the winter. But now the riders are heading towards this great ski resort, and all round about us where we're sitting in the finish line are these enormous chalets where the skiers come during the winter, and during the summer people come mountain biking and hiking, what have you. We can see, looking out across the top of the buildings here, the snow still on the mountain sides of the Alps. It's been not enough warmth really to melt the snow and bring it down, and thank goodness this year though we haven't had a fall of snow. 3 minutes and 40 seconds is the gap now for our leading twosome, Aus and Loder. And here we have the yellow jersey of Ulrich, who romped round yesterday. If you didn't catch up with the results in your newspapers in the time trial, I just put you in the picture before we have another general chat. The lead that Ulrich now has on general classification is 5 minutes and 42 seconds over Veronk. In the time trial yesterday, Jan Ulrich was the victor, and he caught Richard Veronk, and he then knocked 3 minutes and 4 seconds out of him. In third spot yesterday in the time trial, Bjorn Ries, 3 minutes and 8 seconds down. Abel Milano, the Benesto rider, at 3:14. Pantani, Marco Pantani, who rocketed up the climb, was probably the fastest to the top of the climb, was back in fifth spot at 3:42. A good ride by Francesco Casgrande of the Psycho team. He finished sixth in 3:56, and Frank van den Broek was long-time leader. He started quite early in the program. He was seventh overall at 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Zenon Jaskula was eighth at 4 minutes and 50, and Beetseberg was in ninth spot at 5 minutes. And if you missed the information yesterday, Beetseberg is now signed for the Rabobank team for a couple of years, and he'll be riding in their colours from 1998 onwards. Michael Bogard was 10th in the time trial. Good ride there for him. He was 5 minutes and 4 seconds down on the phenomenal Jan Ulrich. The gap then now down to 3 minutes and 43 seconds between our two leaders, Aus and Loder. They had at one time a very good lead of over 5 minutes, but it's coming down now as they're getting closer and closer. You look there in the distance, the massive mountains, and that cut through of the roadway through the valley before they turn sharp left. And the size of the mountain they've got to climb is very similar to what you can see there. The road zigzags up to the top, into the clouds. In fact, fortunately at the moment, the sun is shining here at the finish line, but it's very, very cold indeed, bitterly cold. We put on plenty of clothing today. One thing you learn as a commentator for Eurosport, that you have to put on plenty of warm clothing when you get the cold wind blowing at you. So there we are, these two riders now heading up towards the finish. They're going to be allowed to feed up to 16 kilometres from the arrival. Normally I think it's 20 k's they can't go about. Oh my goodness, the experts are all, we've got some grand champions here, Stephen. You go have a chat. Francesco Moser's arrived. 3:33 then, the gap to the main group at the moment. I was running down the general classification as at yesterday. Jan Ulrich's brilliant ride in that time trial has had a lot of people talking about his ability to punch big holes in the rest of the field, and everybody's searching back through the records to find out when we last had a break just like that. And certainly you have to go back to rides done like the one at Luxembourg by Indurain when he won by over 3 minutes. It isn't normal that you get a gap as big as that by in the time trial stage. And not only that, the man who's second on general classification being caught by the yellow jersey. It happened yesterday, and it was something. Okay, well, I mentioned we got Francesco Moser here, the hour record holder, and Stephen is going to chat to him in Italian, and we'll translate back. Hang on to your hats, this is something unique on Eurosport. Stephen, over to you.
Ciao Francesco, come va?
Bene, bene.
Come ti trova la corsa oggi del Tour? How do you find the race this year?
Ormai tutto si deciderà sull'ultima salita. In Italia tutti aspettano Pantani perché è lui l'uomo che può vincere la tappa oggi. Speriamo almeno che riesca a vincere la tappa e magari fare qualche passo in avanti nella classifica generale.
Francesco says that, of course, the whole of Italy is waiting for Pantani with the climb up to the finish. He said it's a race which should suit Pantani in the hope that maybe he can maybe take a few more seconds out of Virenque and the other guys and maybe move up another place or two on general classification. E come hai trovato il tour questo anno? Era più duro che gli altri anni o era un tour normale? How do you find the Tour de France this year? Is it as hard as every other year or is it difficult?
In Italia tutti seguono molto il tour alla televisione e c'è stata molta attenzione sulla prima parte per tutte le cadute che ci sono state, c'è stata un po' di polemica anche se vogliamo, ma la corsa si è decisa sul Pirenei e adesso la tappa cronometro di ieri e adesso ci sono queste 3 giornate sulle Alpi, ma mi sembra che Ulrich non abbia avversari.
Francesco says that the first few weeks at the Tour de France are very they were followed very deeply in Italy, and unfortunately there's a lot of crashes and it was very difficult on the flat stages, very difficult in the climbs. Ulrich came through very strong, but unfortunately he has no adversaries, he's no competition at the moment. Cosa fai adesso, Francesco? What are you doing at the moment, Francesco?
Io sono nella politica.
In the politics at the moment.
Assessore allo sport e al turismo della provincia autonoma di Trento.
He's working for the sport and tourism of the province of
Trentino.
Of Trentino.
Mi occupo dello sport, del turismo perché
He's looking after sport and tourism.
È come essere qui all'Alpe d'Huez, sono tutte le montagne, molte stazioni di sci, ci sono molti inglesi che vengono a sciare, irlandesi meno, ma inglesi.
He's working for the sport and tourism in Torino, and as we know in Torino there's a lot of mountains and ski stations. A lot of English people come over to Torino, not so many Irish for the moment, but this is basically his job at the moment. Vai ancora in bici, Francesco?
Sì.
Do you go still ride the bike?
2 volte alla settimana.
Francesco says he still goes out on the bike twice a week. E come fai per
trovare che domani vado?
Maybe even tomorrow, però no in Alpe d'Huez, not in Alpe d'Huez.
Senza problemi. No.
He says Alpe d'Huez is not even a problem. Quanti chilometri all'anno fai adesso?
No, farò 3-4 mila.
He says he only does 3,000 or 4,000 kilometers in the year, but looking at it the way he is at the moment, I feel he's maybe doing a little bit more. Come fai adesso per tenere la linea?
Ma credo che sia anche una questione di fisico. Io non ho la tendenza ad ingrassare, anche se non faccio molto movimento, io mangio, però non ingrasso, forse consumo per tutte le attività che faccio.
I asked him how does he keep his good kind of slim line. He said, well, maybe it's a normal thing, maybe because he eats but doesn't get any heavier. Maybe it's simply because his physique is like that with all the activities he has going around with the politics and everything else. Maybe he doesn't just take on the weight.
In inverno faccio lo sci di discesa e di fondo e l'estate bicicletta. Queste sono le sole attività sportive che faccio.
In the winter he does some skiing, downhill skiing and cross country, and in the summer he does some cycling. Tua favorita per oggi? Your favorite for today?
Credo che sia Pantani.
Well, I think you need no explanation for that. He said Pantani. Sì, grazie molto, Francesco.
Ciao.
Thank you, Francesco.
Well, thank you then to Francesco Moser, who really shocked the cycling world 10 years after his hour record in Mexico. He went again in 1994 to attack Boardman's record of 52.270 kilometers per hour. He attacked it at the age of 43 years of age, and Stephen was saying how fit he looks and still he does. And he did 51.84 kilometers per hour, and that actually broke his personal record because he had been the world hour record holder way back in 1986. He did 48.5 kilometers per hour, and then again he went and got it in October 1986, again 49 kilometers per hour. He's a tremendous rider because not only has he got the hour record, he was the world champion in 1977. He won a stage in the Tour of France. He won the Tour of Lombardy, the Midi Libre. He was a world pursuit champion as well. So you've heard live on Eurosport, speaking Italian, the great Francesco Moser, interviewed by my good friend Stephen Roche. now 2 minutes and 33 seconds between the two leaders who went away after 75 kilometres of racing. We're getting in towards the climb of the Alpe d'Huez, just down the road from these riders here. The main pack just, I think, slowly but surely reeling in our breakaway group on this 13th stage of the Tour de France. 203 kilometres, that's 120 miles in all. We were talking earlier on about the interest in the race in Ireland, and I met a chap from the Dan Morrissey Cycling Club, Rory Mitchell from Carlow, earlier on today. He said hello to his club friends and everybody around about his neck of the woods. He turned up wearing a nice little rugby jersey with Murphys all over it. So I know of Murphys, and I know of Beamish, and I know of Guinness, so there's plenty of Irish over here. So Rory Mitchell to his mates in the Dan Morrissey Cycling Club. Hello.
Well, actually, Dave, I met some other Irish people this morning myself, and I just like to kind of reassure the wives that they're actually here. There's Ken Duff from Bray, Harry Dawson from Bray also, and Pat Ryan from Bray. So just to kind of reassure the wives and their family that they are here, because I believe they often go astray in the Tour de France.
Well, we'll go astray next year. Also, who do we meet this morning? I met Sally-Ann Boardman. She was sitting there quiet. I couldn't track down Chris this morning. I want to know what his problems they were still there, and evidently he's still having the same amount of pain with these two vertebrae that got hurt in his neck. The pain isn't going away. He's having treatment for it, but it's not improving at all. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. He's determined to get to the finish and determined to get to Disneyland Paris, because all the 4 children are coming over. Sally's going back tomorrow, collect the children. Next Thursday they're going to come over and take part in the rides in Disneyland and so on. And I asked Sally-Ann, I said, what happened to the lion? Because when you get the yellow jersey, you get given a lion, and Chris said very clearly that the lion was to go to Oscar, because he wanted the lion to go to Oscar, who was born just 2 years ago at the time of the Tour de France. Anyway, Oscar took this lion to the nursery school where he goes, very proud of it, you see, and a girl tried to pull it off him by dragging its tail, and a fight ensued. For this lion, this 2-year-old Oscar, this little girl, and they had to separate them and take the lion away because he was defending it with a certain vigour. Oh well. And I said, well, has his favourite teddy bear been usurped by the lion? And Sally said no, they never bought them teddy bears. Chris, over the years, the Commonwealth Games and various other things, he's been given certain little prizes of various sorts and various stuffed animals, what have you, and he's kept them and given them to the kids, of which he's got 4.
Very good. You can see the peloton here now as the Telecom have come to the front and give the Mercatono Uno team a hand. When Mercatono Uno, Pantani's team, realised that the gap was coming down like under 3 minutes, they felt, well, there's no real need in riding so hard, because Pantani feels confident enough that on Alpe d'Huez he can give anybody, especially the lads that are in front anyway, give them 3 minutes and catch them before the top. So there's no point in the team riding the eyeballs out up to the foot of the climb, and because he can pull back 3 minutes anyway. So we see the Telecom team here now on the front with the Mercatono Uno team, but they're not riding as hard or with as much conviction as they had earlier on in the stage, simply because you can see on the right hand side of the screen here the gap now is down to 2 minutes and 3 seconds.
And Gam beginning to move up as well, getting close to the front. They don't have an actual climber as such in the team, but I'm just looking down the list to see. I think we've got a sprint coming up, or have we not? No, we haven't. We've been through all the sprints. The only thing left is the Oak category climb of the Alpe d'Huez. And this terrible climb, which is in front of them, goes up to a height of 1,860 metres above sea level. They've been down in the valley, and they've been down as low as 200 metres above sea level at Grenoble, and they begin to climb now, and they're about to point about 400 metres above sea level. There's still 1,400 metres of climbing ahead of them, and there you see the water coming cascading down off the mountain top, where the melting snow is filling the rivers and providing hydroelectricity. And you see that right on your screen, live on Eurosport, this wonderful, wonderful sight of the riders now setting towards that mountain in front, that really, as you go along, you can see them in the distance, you can see the climb, you can see the snow. And you can see the gap is now down to 2 minutes and 5 seconds. You've been talking, Stephen, about the special drinks the riders take. I went this morning to the US Postal Team to see what's happened to Jeff Brown's father, Ian Brown, who was a rider with the Armstrong many years ago, and he's over from Canada. And I suddenly spotted that on the top of the jersey of George Hincapie, they've all the team amongst the sponsorship, they've got Pocket Rocket. And I said, George, you're about 6'2", you're certainly not the Pocket Rocket. He says, no, David, it's a special drink, one of these high-powered drinks that you've been talking about. And he put his hand in his pocket and he brought it out. It's called a Pocket Rocket because, you know, those sort of sachets that you have for to wash your hair with, the shampoo sachets. It's bigger than a shampoo sachet, and it's made in a shape like a bottle, and you can take the top off. And he showed it to me. I hadn't actually got my glasses to read the ingredients, but it was these high-powered drinks, and it is actually in a plastic sachet. You just tear the top off, squeeze it back down, and that's Pocket Rocket.
Well, I remember the Pocket Rocket I knew was Steve Jochen
of
the Isle of Man. Any of you who raced or followed the cycling in the Isle of Man back in the 70s and early 80s, you would remember, of course, Steve Jochen. I remember having a number of battles with him in time trials and in criterium, especially the Douglas KMS, the Douglas criterium, or different races and events we rode in the Isle of Man together. So that was the only Pocket Rocket I knew, and he was small and very, very fast.
He was. Steve Jochen, the original Pocket Rocket. There we are, the 2 leaders on this stage 13, Saint-Etienne to Alpe d'Huez, 203.5 kilometres. The gap is coming down all the time now. It looks like it's inside the 2-minute barrier now. It was over 5 minutes at one point. So for on the front, a load up, and Als there, load up. Well, he finished 100th in the Tour de France in 1995. Didn't finish last year. Not a man that wins much. He's been riding for the MG Technogym team for the past 3 years, 94, 95, 96. This is his 4th year with the team. The team folds at the end of the year. He previously rode with the MG when they're sponsored by GB Bianchi in 1993. So all his professional career, the man in blue here, has been spent with the MG team. MG are a clothing company. I'm not quite sure, do they make it, Stephen, or are they shops that sell it in Italy? MG.
MG is also the Belgian part of the Italian team. Also, they do also have a big kind of supermarket range up in Belgium. So the Technogym is more of
exercise equipment,
gym,
isn't it?
Exercise, gym equipment, and everything else. And MG is part of the kind of fruit and vegetables and kind of alimentation. Where we got French, isn't it? Food chain in Belgium. But we see the casino here. The casino rider here, he's from the main sponsor of the team is from this area, so it's very good to see. I'm happy to see those lads up the front.
Because casino based in Grenoble, are they?
Yeah, Vincent Lavenue, the director sportif of the team, is from this area, around Grenoble area, and he originally built the team around a lot of local boys around this area. And Laurent Biondi, the second director, is also from this area. So it's nice to see them in front because they need a plug now and again to do.
And Als then had 4 victories last year in 96, mainly quite small ones as such, but nevertheless he has a little bit of success under his belt. But right now, Stephen's back in action again. Here's the interview of the day. I'm going to listen to the ad breaks, and off to you go, Stephen.
Sorry, Dave, the person I had lined up has ran from me. He's called off.
He's gone.
He's called off. He actually had Graham Jones actually lined up there for a quick word.
He wants to speak to me, hang on.
But he had to run off. But you can see the riders here, they're actually starting to die now. You see the peloton here is actually settled back now to a nice steady pace because they know now the riders in front are going to catch them, and the Mercatona Uno team of Pantani know that, well, 2 minutes is still quite possible for him to bring back on the climb.
The riders now are not very far from Alpe d'Huez. They must be only about, I'd say, about 10 kilometers or so from the climb itself. They'll be going at the moment. They're riding along on a big chain ring of 53 and probably about a 4:15 or a 14 sprocket behind. They'll be going straight on. When the minute they hit the foot of the Alpe d'Huez, they'll be going right down to a 39, 22, 23 or 39, 21, 23 or 41, 22, 23. Basically the ideal gear for the climb. The riders who are going to be here for the attack or for the win will be all basically riding a 39, 21. Has 39 inside chainring and a 21 rear sprocket on the back.
Well, Graham Jones, who popped down here, not to be interviewed, although he did finish 20th in the Tour de France some years ago. What he came down for, Chris, is very nice. Was very nice. Was some news about Chris Boardman, because let me put in the picture today. We've had two journalists from two major national newspapers in Great Britain, Andrew Longmore and Gareth Davies, come, and I had to transport them along the route, and we got slightly on the wrong road, and I only got here with about 3 minutes to spare. Normally I'm here about 3/4 an hour before, and we have a little computer in front of us. It's like a small scale black and white television set. They call it the Minitel in France, and we can run up and check what's happened during the day. When I got here with just a few minutes to spare, I asked my colleagues what had happened. They told me, and I tried to go back on the machine and it just froze. Sometimes this blasted thing freezes and I couldn't go further back. And what Graham came down to say was, because I've been talking about Sally Boardman and how intent Chris was on getting to the finish in Paris, determined to finish whatever cost. He said he actually climbed up at about 50 kilometers, and that is on my screen, but I can't get it. I can't go back. Somebody the blasted thing's frozen. So thank you, Graham Jones. Thank you, Radio 5, and thank you everyone who phoned back through Radio 5. Radio 5 are above us, and Graham Jones brought the message down. So you know, and I'm just cursing this blasted machine in front of me. I should give it a smart thump with a hammer, because it just wouldn't go back beyond a certain point. It shows 6 pieces of information, just to put you in the picture now. I've got everything there where Reece changed his bike, the carte basse, la carte basse encore, 240 d'avance, 225 a repro. It's all coming up here, and you can run it backwards, but it just froze at about the 17th piece of information, Stephen. So to all you people back in Great Britain, I said he was trying to get there, and now I've been told he's not going to get there. He has climbed up. And you know, Stephen, as we're watching this lovely scenery and these riders going on here, I spoke to somebody yesterday who'd only just come on the race, and he said, Boardman, that time trial yesterday, you know, what did he do? It wasn't a decent ride, was he? You know, he wasn't really trying. He had 23rd place, and like very derogatory. And I took him on one side. I said, look, I saw Boardman finish 2 days ago, and/or actually 3 days, 2 days of racing. I said, I've never seen a man in so much pain and suffering. And I went to him, I said, his soigneur wasn't there. I took a bottle of water to him, and he said, don't touch me, David, I hurt, and I've never hurt so much in all my life. And I looked at, you know, Steve, when you can look at somebody, you think, this bloke is suffering and has suffered. And when this particular person said to me, I really went to him, I nearly put my hands around his throat. I said, Chris Boardman was soldering on, and he can't get rid of the pain, and anybody else would have packed on that day in the Pyrenees, but he's riding on, and now of course it looks like it's too much for him, and he's climbed up. Our sympathies go out to Chris and his family. If you do come to Paris, I think you will do, Chris, perhaps you can come and join us on Eurosport and talk to the people at home, and we respect everything you've done. Bad luck this year, and I hope you come back next year and battle again for that yellow jersey.
Well, that's the story of the Tour, Dave. You know, it's riders today put everything into the Tour de France, but unfortunately there's only one Tour every year as they go under the flag here for 25 kilometers to the finish, which is only like some 10 kilometers to the foot of Alpe d'Huez. But you know, I think Chris this year, he had it in his mind he's going to do a good Tour de France. He said he'd hope to finish in the first 10, and I do believe he's capable of doing it, but maybe he should change a little bit his program, as a personal opinion only, is maybe he should change a little his program and his approach to the Tour. But the Tour is a Tour, and you're never out of a storm. There's crashes, there's rain, there's snow, sometimes snow. You've got mountains, you've got flat stages, you've got sprints. The Tour de France is everything, and if you need a lot of luck, you need a lot of good conditioning, you need a good team around you. You need so many different elements to actually make a Tour de France be a success. So this year, unfortunately, was not Chris Boardman's Tour, but I'm sure with Chris, and knowing him so well, I'm sure Chris will fight back to give another many more good moments in the Tour de France.
Two riders you're looking at now have courageously tried to get the stage, but to no avail. The gap's only about 15 seconds, and they both decide now to knock it on the head. But they've entertained us, haven't they, Stephen, here with their courageous ride, and they went about 73 kilometres. We're now getting to the point where about less than 20 kilometres to go from the finish.
Well, there's some 8 kilometres now from the foot of Alpe d'Huez, and you see them there talking to one another. You know, they're just saying, well, we've done our job. We've been 140 kilometres out there on our breakaway group. We have a maximum of 5.5 minutes of a lead. It wasn't enough. We tried playing the cards early. It didn't work out. So now all we've got to do now is just kind of get to the foot of the climb and make our own way up. It's sure we're not going to finish with the first guys today, but look at the speed that the peloton now is going past them. They've kind of resigned themselves to the fact that, well, we've had a go. It didn't work out. If we had 4 minutes on the foot of Alpe d'Huez, it was still possible to maybe stay away to the finish. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be.
Well, they are. They're caught now, and the field will come together at the bottom of the climb. And this morning, when I was with Andrew Longmore writing for the Sunday Times an article, I'm not sure it's in this week, he went up and spoke to Henk Vogels, and he said to him, you know, what's your ambition for today? And he just said, to survive. My goodness, one or two when they hit the bottom of this climb will be having just the same thoughts. And then Andrew went on to ask him about how he saw Ulrich, because they're trying to find much information they can about the man in the yellow jersey. And Hank was saying, look, you know, I've ridden against him as an amateur. We saw him win the World Championship in 1993. He said he's made huge progress, and we just felt as we came into this race he was just waiting to do something, and he's gone off and done it.
No, he's certainly done a lot of things today. When you see the way he dominated the time trial yesterday. But I think many people, many journalists are jumping to kind of the conclusions, saying, well, how do you find him? Is he better than Hino? Is he better than Indurain? Is he better than Merckx and everything else? Like, this actually is my own opinion once again, but I feel a little bit saddened by the kind of and the speed that journalists are so quick to say that this guy is better than all the guys that have come before them. Like Hino beat the people that are around him and his generation. Fignon did the very same. Indurain did the very same. He did what he had to do to win the Tour. They did what they had to win as fast as they had to go to win time trials. Ulrich went fast yesterday, beat Richard Verheyen by 3 minutes. Great, fabulous. But I think there are journalists today, they're very quickly to go along and jump ahead and say, oh, this guy is better than Hino, this guy is better than Merckx, or what have you. I think it's a kind of a little disrespect for the past generations, because there's no one to say that if Indurain had been there at the same time as Hino would not have beaten him, or vice versa with Merckx, or now with Ulrich. So it's I just kind of saddens me to see journalists, my own personal opinion once again, but I think that Ulrich is the strongest now of his generation. He's doing what he has to do to win his Tour de France here, and leave it at that. He's great, and I think he's doing a fabulous ride. He's very complete. He's got a fabulous future ahead of him. But you know, leave the past ride, leave Hino, the Fignons, the Indurains and the Legados and everybody else, leave them to kind of savour their own bit of glory, rather than saying if this guy had been around when you were there, he wouldn't have won a Tour, you know. I think that the past generations have kind of really made the Tour de France what it is today.
Also, Steve, what happens, I think, with the over the years, people... I myself am a great Fausto Coppi fan, because, you know, when I started getting interested in cycling, he was the dominant person, and you're inclined to think of the people who came. When I talked to Hugh Porter, for instance, 4 times World Pursuit champion, I asked him he said Eddie Merckx, because Eddie was around when he was around. I think you often have a fixation about somebody who was dominating the sport when you've got interest in it, or you're riding yourself, when in reality you can't compare them, because the whole thing is different. When I look at Fausto Coppi, he would win stages by 10-12 minutes and just go off on his own, ride the last 2/3. You could never do that today, because the team tactics are so different. In those days they didn't have team tactics like you've got now. The blokes got a jersey and small expenses and a bike, and they rode for money, and they were happy to be in a team like Fausto Coppi, and hope they get some money of that as well. You didn't get the tactics like you're seeing here. In those days I never saw this when I was involved. It was only black and white cinema films we used to see occasionally. These tactics never existed then, did they?
Well, there's always different kinds of tactics, but at the same time, what I'm saying is that if you go in and win a race by beating the second guy, well, you've won it by beating the second guy. That second place guy had it been Ulrich or Duran or Hino, whoever it might be. You do what you have to do to win on the day. So I think it's unfair to the past victories, the past victors, to actually to start to compare them with the technology and the tactics and the physical training and everything else that these boys have. I think it's unfair to the past winners to be comparing them, you know. But it's very interesting to see what's happening here. We saw some of the telecom riders riding on the front. We saw them pulling over to the side and going to the back. They had done their job for today. What they got to do now is just got to get to the finish. There's Zabel here on the left-hand side of his screen here with Ulrich on his wheel here. You just saw Udo Bolt there on the right-hand side of the yellow jersey, just putting his hand on the Ulrich back and probably saying to him, well, it's over to you now. I can't do any more for you. Do your best on the climb.
Well, here we are, this race now hotting up as they're getting close to the first big, or the only big climb of the day today. And yes, you're quite right, Stephen. The way in which we compare people, we just can't make a comparison because the sport has changed so much over the years, and it continues to change too as well, both in the tactics, the equipment they ride, the sort of training they go through now, the road conditions under which they're racing to. Everything is so different as such. And my thoughts go back to Brian Robinson, who finished 29th in 1956. He was riding for Hercules in those days, and they didn't have a team for the 1955 Tour. 55 they had the success, and then he went in again in 1956 to try and ride again. He had to ride with a Chilo team. He said he signed for the Chilo team. They sort of said he was too old to turn professional at 25, and he said I wasn't strong enough. He said there was no pay, just a bike and tackle plus traveling expenses. That's Brian Robinson way back in the mid-50s, just had to go and just ride, and in fact he was riding for prize money so that he could survive the following year. Now the hammer's really coming down, and the Festina's on the front. Telecom are there. We're approaching the foot of the big Alpe d'Huez climb, and really they're starting to put the pressure on. Soon they'll be turning sharp left and up onto the first climb, 21 of the hairpin bends up toward the top of the climb. Seeing what goes through the minds of the riders now. There must be two sorts. Those who say, God almighty, here it comes, and those who are saying, lipping their lips, this is something I've been looking forward to. What's it like just getting to this point now?
Well, you have the leaders will be saying to themselves, oh, how am I going to feel today? I feel okay at the moment. I made a big effort yesterday in the time trial. Will I have recovered sufficient to be there? There they are turning left, David. You were saying about 400 meters now to go left again, and they hit the foot of Alpe d'Huez. And it's like going up a wall. They've been riding the big ears all along for today, and all of a sudden now they're going to go down onto the small chain ring. You might even see lads maybe letting the chain slip off the inside ring, because it just comes so brutal that the guy from the big ring onto the small chain ring, sometimes it can just fall off onto the bottom bracket. But I'm expecting here now, Dave, to see the Festina riders having a good go. The likes of Brochard, the likes of Laurent Defoe, I can see them attacking straight from the foot of the climb, trying to put the Telecom under pressure. The Telecom will, of course, you see the riders here in the front, they're putting off one at a time. Someone else taking over the relay. They're trying to get Ulrich to the foot of the hill as in a good a position as they can. We'll probably see Rees, I think, maybe doing a bit of work here today, which is something we haven't seen so much in the past, because we've always seen Ulrich riding for Rees. So now we'll see Rees, I'd say, doing a bit of work for Ulrich. I see Hepner here in the front, and Zabel now, he's actually done his job now, looking around, they're looking for the yellow jersey. Yeah, I just thought that actually Ulrich had actually let his chain go, but he had a little bit of difficulty putting it across.
Well, they're going up for the man in yellow, the man in gold, and we're going up toward the top of the mountain, where in fact in the Middle Ages they used to have a silver mine at the top, right by the Lac Blanc, and now these riders here.
Is that faster, David?
Yeah, no, it's
very like him.
It's a bit like him, isn't it? But he's not that much of a climber. But
I know, but I think the help was there, yeah.
Well, I'm saying it's an unusual part of the world. I hope we see that lake at the top. It's actually sort of whitish coloured because of barite, and they used to get the lead out, take it down to Grenoble and extract the silver at the top Alpe d'Huez. So there's gold for the man in yellow if he gets to the top there, but as far as the pressure comes, Veronk lies 5 minutes and 42 seconds down on Ulrich. Olano is in third spot at 8 minutes. Bjorn Ries back in fourth at 8 minutes and 1 second. Only 1 second between Olano and Ries. Pantani, who could climb well here, 9 minutes 11 seconds down. Can he go over Olano? Can he get over Ries? So there's a lot of people then shuttling the cards in the positions down. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. They'll all be shuttling the card. But Ulrich has got now ready to show he's the boss and be prepared not to blow on this climb.
It's a very good move now by Vassar. He knows he's not going to be with the first guys going over the top, but he said he can get a bit of rope here when the real kind of fireworks start back in the bunch. He might be in a position to maybe get onto a good group and finish well up. He's also leading the moment the combativity award, which is sponsored by Coeur de Lion, and I'm sure he's interested in getting a few more points for that as well, because you must remember there's £12,000 for the overall super combative in Paris in 10 days time. We have Pascal Hervey now coming to the front here with Virenque. Laurent Defoe is behind.
Well, Van Impe, quoted in the L'Equipe newspaper, said the other day that he didn't feel that Virenque is a proper climber. Van Impe, winner of the Tour in 1976, 6 times the best climber in the Tour de France, feels that although he's won 3 of the King of the Mountains jersey, he doesn't class Richard Virenque as a true mountain climber. Certainly to me, Pantani is more of a true mountain climber, but Virenque certainly can haul his body up these climbs. And right now, he's setting a pace to the front. The man who's second on general classification at 5:42. Being shadowed by Ulrich, and one by one they're dropping off. Stephen, this must be the moment you think, oh my goodness, still 20 turns to go.
Exactly, and I can tell you count every one of these corners, you count every one of them, and unfortunately the final five corners come very, very long, because there's long straights between each one of them. Ulrich there is looking behind to see who he has left as a teammate. You see Ries there on his right hand shoulder, on the left hand side of your screen. We saw Pantani there also on the right hand side of your screen, just behind Virenque, and the gap seems to be opening up already, Dave.
Yeah, and Casagrande is there in the red for Psycho. Stephen, I've seen many climbs on this Alpe d'Huez. You climbed it as well. I don't think I've seen the top boys start to go so early.
Look at Orlando, Dave, here. He's actually making the tempo himself.
So Ulrich at the front, then Virenque, and then Pantani, Casagrande in the red and the pink and white of Ries. The one who's not made it is Abraham Olano. He's not there at the moment. Escartin in the green and white. He's coming up now for the Kelme Costa Blanca Eurosport team, but I can't see Olano.
Ulrich, Virenque now, I'm sure, is saying to himself, well, okay, I meant to make the start of this hill hard. I was going to attack Ulrich, and now Ulrich now is coming up and riding on the front. Says, how am I going to get rid of him? As we see Pantani here putting an attack in here. I don't know whether Pantani will have the power to get away here, because he's been only coming back after being a year practically off the bike because of injuries, because of a crash. But Virenque and Pantani have to go on Alpe d'Huez. They have to put as much time into Bjorn Ries and Abraham Orlano on this climb, because the second and third place on GC, whatever about the first place, second and third place is still up for grabs here.
And Pantani on his way up here, although he's in the bluish colours of the new Mercatonino strip for the Tour de France, he's going to find a Pantani look-alike just up the road with shaven head and the Mercatonino yellow colours, and his father's up there as well. There's masses of camper vans with Pantani's photograph plastered all over. It looks to me as if Casagrande has been dropped off. Yeah, it has. Casagrande is being dropped off now. Francesco Casagrande lying 7th overall. He moved up from 9th for the fine time trial yesterday. Now 11 minutes 16 seconds in arrears, and now he's struggling to stay in contention with the big hitters. He finished 6th yesterday. Casagrande did it in the time trial, 3 minutes 56. In fact, the places from 2nd to 6th were all covered by only 52 seconds. A man who's head and shoulders above everybody else yesterday is in the yellow jersey now. He dominated the race yesterday, and he's looking very, very comfortable indeed. There, Pantani, Ulrich, Virenque and Ries on your screen. These four now going to rip each other to pieces.
I think Ries is having a little bit of difficulty there as well, Dave, but look at what ease Ulrich is riding there. Pantani is riding very, very hard, but he needs somebody to help him. Otherwise, he'll find himself maybe being under fire from Virenque as we get towards the top. This part of the climb here now is the hardest part for a non-climber for the likes of Reese, because it's very steep with flat corners, whereas once you get over the first 5 kilometers, they're longer straights, and it makes it a little bit more easier for someone to make a tempo.
Well, certainly the big guns have started firing quite early on at the bottom of this climb, and now the rest of the field must be wondering just what they've got to do to stay in there and plug their way up, and I suppose it's down survival to finish. So Pantani still on the front, the sweat dripping off his nose. This climber who came back virtually from the dead when he had that bad crash in October nearly 2 years ago, smashed his legs, and one was so badly broken they thought he would never ride a bike or walk again. He fixed it. He went into the swimming pool taking plenty of exercise with a special plastic bag to keep the water out round his leg to get exercise in the swimming pool, so his muscles didn't waste away. He's had to ride himself back into form, and suddenly he's recovered that enthusiasm for climbing, and here he is now setting a fast pace on the front. So still Pantani on the front, followed by Veronk, then Ulrich and Bjorn Rees. These four have now opened up an enormous lead on the rest of the field as Casagrande tries desperately to hang on to that quartet in front. Is under pressure. He's been dropped by the leaders now. He's struggling after some 6-7 minutes of climbing. These three men have got rid of Bjorn Rees. Still a long way to the top of the Alpe d'Huez. The man doing the damage on the front is Pantani. Behind is Veronk, and Ulrich just hanging on behind there. So Rees now been dropped off. Further back down at 26 seconds, Casagrande being closed down by Beltran, Jimenez, Olano, Madouas, Escartin and Moreau. But the battle for the honours is up here in front. Marco Pantani starting out this morning 9 minutes 11 seconds down on Ulrich, but his main prize is to move ahead of Olano and Rees. This morning Olano was 1 minute 11 seconds up on Pantani. Rees was 1 minute 10 seconds up on Pantani. The man you're looking at now is desperately trying to ride himself into third place overall, and he has a chance somewhere provided he doesn't blow.
Well, this is it. Like, it's unfortunate. It would be unfortunate to see Ponsati putting in this great effort and having the likes of Luc Leblanc here. We don't know where actually he is. It's behind the back of the race. But it'd be unfortunate to see someone like Pantani doing all the work he's doing at the moment, riding himself into the third place on overall GC. Oh, Pantani's gone, Dave.
He's left them. Amazing. Already early on in this race. We've been climbing now for less than 10 minutes of the climb. How long does it take, Stephen, to get from the bottom to the top roughly? So 13, 14 Ks.
I don't know.
About 25 minutes?
I don't know, but the rate these boys are going at the moment, they're going to be up here very, very quickly, I think. But I was saying that it would be unfortunate for Pantani to do all the work and have somebody else then get the spoils at the end of the day. But Pantani would love to get rid of Virenque as well, because we saw Virenque doing a very good time trial yesterday. So Pantani, whatever about getting rid of Ulrich and getting the first place, the second place on the podium is still an option for him. I would see Virenque going under pressure. Dave?
Oh, this is amazing then, as Pantani's gone away and only Ulrich's gone across to him. I just had a quick check here according to the schedule at 40 km per hour, which they won't quite go at that sort of speed, maybe around about 36 km per hour from the climb out from the turn at the 14.5 kilometre point. It's going to take somewhere around about 39, maybe 40 minutes for them to climb. Still 10 kilometres to go. At this particular point, they've still got around about another 26 minutes of climbing, and the gaps are opening up.
Yeah, Pantani is just accelerating a little bit now and again, just changing the rhythm for Ulrich. But Ulrich just keeps coming back onto Pantani's wheel. Pantani is putting in the performance of his life here. I was saying earlier on that it would be very interesting to see if Virenque actually has recovered from his time trial yesterday, because he really had to go into the red. When Ulrich caught him with some 12, 13 kilometers to go, he hung on to go, keeping Orlando just in the front of him at some Ulrich at some 20, 30 meters or so, and hung on in there all the time, digging into his reserves. Virenque is never a great time trialist. Yesterday he would finish second at the time trial. That wasn't his place. Ulrich doesn't seem to be too comfortable yet there, Dave.
And Pantani's gone again. This is an unbelievable performance by a man that many people have written off following that serious injury. He's cracked most of the bones in his body in his time, but he's an absolute brilliant climber, and I think Van Impe would have to respect him as a climber.
I think so, but like the first part of the climb here suited Pantani. As I was saying earlier on, the very sharp, steep bits. From here on up now, we're going through a small town, a small little village here very shortly, and from then on up, it's a very regular, very consistent climb, which will suit Ulrich. So Pantani knows he has to put a different time into the likes of Ulrich here, because once it gets over this part of here, it will suit, the terrain will suit better with riders like Ulrich who are strong climbers.
And now Ulrich's been dropped off by Pantani. The news coming on my headphones is that Vironk is now 8 seconds behind this man here you're looking at. 50 seconds back to Rees and Casagrande. 1 minute 10 seconds to the group containing Alano. So the way that Pantani is going, he certainly will go over Rees on the general classification, over Olano on the general classification if he keeps going like this. And he's already bringing back time on Ulrich. But sure, Ulrich has only one thought in mind, that's to make sure he comes up over the top of the climb ahead of Richard Vironk, who is now struggling.
Well, Ulrich is putting in a great performance here. Look at him on the corners here. He's just sitting in the saddle. At this moment in time, we have Orlando being coming over headphones here. Is 1:30 back on Vironk. So at this very moment, Orlando has lost his third place to Pantani.
And this is a man then showing us climbing at his brilliant best. In the Tour of Italy a couple of years ago, virtually unknown, he came and climbed up on the Saturday and the Sunday, or sorry, it was a Friday, I think, wasn't it, Stephen? Thursday and Friday, just before the final stage. Thursday and Friday, and he just burst upon the scenes, and everybody said, who's this special climber? Ulrich just concentrating here on keeping an eye on Pantani, and I think providing he rides up here comfortably away from Vironk. Vironk now can't catch Ulrich in front of. If he does, I think he'll be a bit Banjak's doing it as such. You're quite right, I think Steve must be suffering that time trial yesterday.
Yes, and also like bad news for Richard, like tomorrow's stage is a very short stage, but has 3 major climbs finishing on top of Courchevel. Tomorrow's climb is Col de Glondon, 1,924 metres. Col de la Madeleine, 2,000 meters altitude, and then you have Courchevel, 2,004 meters altitude. So there's 3 very, very important climbs tomorrow. A very short stage. It's going to be very, very exciting. If Richard Vironk has not recovered yesterday from his time trial, with the fatigue he's adding to that again today, tomorrow's going to be a difficult stage.
You're looking at Pantani, who had lots of problems early on. He was well and truly off the back of the pack, and look now back to the stage 13 to Po before he hit the mountains. Pantani was in 62nd spot, 7 minutes and 17 seconds down on Vassar, who was then the overall leader on general classification. So Pantani has worked his way up from 62nd up now to be challenging for 3rd spot, and if Richard Vironk doesn't watch it tomorrow, Pantani could be looking for 2nd.
Well, I think Pantani will be having a go tomorrow again, but I don't know. I just hope Pantani has not gone too early, Dave, because he led out right from the foot of the climb right up. We know he can do it on a climb. He can stay at a very fast pace for 12, 13, 14 kilometers, but I just hope that with all the excitement and everything else of dropping Rees, of dropping Vironk, and then dropping the yellow jersey of Ulrich, I just hope he doesn't get just taken over by it all and maybe misjudge the climb, and maybe start losing ground towards the top of the climb.
The news coming on the headphones then that Pantani is now 15 seconds up on Ulrich, 33 seconds up on Vironk. They're confirmed on your screen the damage that Ulrich is doing, that Pantani is doing to Ulrich and Vironk, and we've only been on the climb now some 10 minutes.
As you can see, as I was saying earlier on, the crowds on Alpe d'Huez this year, I've never seen them so dense. They're from everywhere. Normally you have a lot of Dutch people here from Holland. It's gotten baptized maybe over the years because of the wins of Zoetemelk, Roche and Tunis. But now from the last year's performance of Björn Riese, there's an incredible amount of Danish people here on the climb. There's also a lot of Italians. You can see the Italian flag there on the left-hand side of your screen there. But Pantani is putting in an incredible performance here.
You're watching in action a man who in what they call the Baby Giro, the amateur tour of Italy, has had third, second and first places. A gifted climber, and certainly this year we looked at the course, didn't we, Stephen, in November when they launched it, and everybody said it's going to be a climber's course, and certainly it's proving to be just that for people like Pantani and well, I'm just getting the time checks coming back now. 1 minute 47 seconds it is, back to the group containing Olano. That's Olano, Beltran, Jimenez, Madouas, Escartin and Muller. Wedged between that group is Casagrande together with Bjorn Ries, and then Veronk on his own, as we see here now, and Ulrich on his own, and Pantani on his own. This is a man doing the damage. They time trialled each other virtually into oblivion yesterday. Pantani was the fastest to the climb. Then Ulrich took over, and we saw Bjorn Ries here, who's just at the back of Casagrande, descending like a stone off the top of the big mountain yesterday into Saint-Etienne to come into third spot. Pantani dropped back into fifth on the time trial yesterday, but only 56 seconds on the time trials was spread across Veronk, Ries, Olano, Pantani and Casagrande. The one man who dominated the call was, of course, the yellow jersey, Jan Ulrich, but Pantani can climb. He can't always descend at great speed. He's one of the most crazy descends there are, but there's no descending today on the bikes. They're going to come down in the team cars when they finish. The sun is shining up at the top of the climb. It looks jolly nice here, but the wind is very cold indeed, and if you're not in the sunshine, it's bitterly cold for these riders. And Veronk then out the saddle, prancing his way up the climb.
Ulrich seems to be putting on a bit of face there, Dave. He seems to be kind of under pressure. There's still some 5 kilometres to go to the finish, I think, Dave.
Yes, and still Ulrich then perhaps beginning to suffer a bit from his efforts the other day, yesterday when he went on so well in that time trial. A bit more than about this man, champion of the world in 1993. If you haven't caught up with what we've been saying about him earlier on, he won the World Cup for the amateurs in 1993. They were good years as far as he went on then. He took...
Actually, just listening into
talents coming up.
Listening into a radio tour there a minute ago, Dave, and they were interviewing Walter Godefroy, the director sportif of Ulrich, and he was saying, he just told Ulrich not to go into the red, to ride 100%, but don't go into the red. The stage maybe can go to Pantani, but the overall lead is not in danger. You just saw Pantani there pushing away a spectator, which is quite normal. Some people here running along beside the rider here, and they actually get in the way and they annoy them. Pantani here is very, very concentrated, so all this kind of little jest that you see people here jumping out, putting the hands out in front of him, they're actually taking away his concentration. He does not need at the moment. As we see here again on the screen here, look, that's stupid. It looks stupid by somebody running along like that.
I think the bloke needs taken out and shot with a bow and arrow. It's no good patting him on the back as he comes through. There's some crazy spectators out there at the moment, but thank goodness they're not interfering with the race. They start pushing the riders can actually suffer penalties. And there's a helicopter, by the way, is way up in the sky with Pantani is still in the lead, yes.
Yeah,
confirmed 22 to Ulrich.
Look at the difference between
135 back to Casagrande and Ries.
See the difference in style between Veronk and Pantani. Veronk here is really digging in again. He's definitely in the red here. He's way over the 100%. He's giving it everything because he knows that with Pantani in front of him, his third place on the podium, second place on the podium is gone.
This man, when he's asked what was going to be his best hope in his career, the reply was early on this season in the Telecom magazine, he said, I hope to carry one time the Maillot Jaune of the Tour de France, preferably into Paris. Well, he's got the Maillot Jaune. Can he carry it all the way towards Paris? Certainly at the moment he's tracking Pantani. The gap is 22 seconds back to Ulrich. 42 seconds to Veronk. 135 to Ries, and 2 minutes and 5 seconds to the group containing Olano. Richard Veronk now wedged in third spot. these two riders you're looking at here, Casagrande and Rees, last time check 1 minute 35 seconds back. You see right up there in the top of the sky, that's part of the Alpe d'Huez ski station. Not all of it, they've still got a lot further to go over the top of that one. But bad news for Olano and Escartin. They're with a group containing Beltran, Jimenez and Morro and Madouas, and they are at 2 minutes and 5 seconds behind this man, Pantani.
I just heard coming in, Dave, on the radio also that Yul Ulrich is 42 seconds behind. Well, some says 42, some says 24, so I'm sure radios coming in my ears here. But anyway, he's some 30-odd seconds behind Pantani at the moment. But just look at Pantani, the way he's riding this Tour de France here. We had a fabulous time trial yesterday. I wonder what would have happened, Dave. He had not had all the problems in the first week with the falling off, with the crashes and everything else. He had a lot of bad luck at the flat stages through Normandy and down through Brittany. He's putting in a fabulous tour, a fabulous ride here, an incredible ride yesterday in the time trial, and a fabulous ride today. I wonder how long he can keep it up though.
The snow is in the background, the big mountains of the Alpe d'Huez looming all over the place here, and this man is doing the ride of his life.
You can see the difference between Pantani there. He looks to be all the time sprinting out of the corners as you go under the bar, under the flag now for 5 kilometers to go. But when you see Ulrich the way he is, Pantani is a much more impressive rider, much more dynamic rider than Ulrich would be. So even though he may look like here to be going a lot faster, it can only be an impression, because I think that at the moment, from time checks coming in on our headphones here, he only has some 25 seconds or so up. We get a correct time check now as Ulrich goes under the 5 kilometer to go flag.
I've got the watch running at that particular point, and Ulrich now behind Pantani is 24 seconds in arrears. The next one to come through will be Veronk. 5 kilometers to go, most of it agony, all of it bar the little bit drowned in the finishing area, uphill.
See Ulrich putting his hands down the bottom of his bars. We always saw Miguel Indurain doing this very same thing. Here's Virenque now going under the same 25 seconds for Ulrich.
53 seconds back to Veronk, so Pantani really is moving up the general classification. He certainly, at the rate he's going, could move into third spot.
Second place, Dave.
Sorry,
second place. It should.
Pantani going to third behind Veronk. I don't think he can catch Veronk overall, because Veronk's 5:42 down, and it's 4 minutes, well, just under 3.5 minutes back to. But tomorrow, you see, if Veronk has, as you say, burned himself out, Pantani's going to go closer and closer and closer, because tomorrow's another big mountain top finish, isn't it?
Well, it is, and this is the problem now with Virenque yesterday. Not just going 100%, but going into the red, but trying to follow the train that Ulrich set for him in the final 15 kilometers yesterday. So the thing about this Tour de France this year is there's no recuperation period at all for anybody. We went straight from the Pyrenees into a rest day. The rest day was straight before a time trial, so it meant that on a rest day everybody had to go out and train hard to simulate another stage. The time trial yesterday was very, very hard, possibly one of the hardest time trials I've ever seen in the Tour de France. And then they have Alpe d'Huez today, so it's an incredible menu for the riders this year. Tomorrow then with Courchevel, and after tomorrow then a stage with Morzine Morzine. So it's an incredible tour this year. There's no time whatsoever for recuperation.
The gap then back to Olano, Beltran, Jimenez, Madouas, Escartin and Morro is 2 minutes and 25 seconds as Pantani goes under the 4 kilometer to go. Now I'm reading out all those names. They're calling it the Olano group. I'm not sure that all of them survived at the moment, but they're 2 minutes 25 seconds down. So no doubt about it that this man Pantani has leapt over those riders. He started 1 minute and 10 seconds behind Rees this morning, and that gap at the last one we had was way beyond that. And so Pantani is riding himself definitely into third spot.
Four kilometers to go now for Ulrich. 34 seconds behind Pantani at the moment. 4 kilometers to go, so he seems to be holding his own, losing 4 or 5 seconds a kilometer only.
Yeah, he's 32 seconds down now, so in the last kilometre he's lost, you're quite right, he's lost 8 seconds in the last kilometre.
And as I was saying earlier on, that this part of the hill now suits more the likes of Ulrich than Pantani. You can see it's more of a steady climb up rather than the short steep rises as you have on the foot of the Alpe d'Huez climb. 1 minute and 2 seconds for Virenque, 32 seconds between Ulrich and Virenque.
Well, Pantani this morning starting out about 3.5 minutes behind Virenque. If he keeps pulling them out like this, Stephen, gets in a minute and a half today, minute and a half tomorrow. Virenque's got to watch himself.
He has, because Virenque does recuperate very, very quickly, but at the same time, where is he going to recuperate? He can only sleep, but tomorrow is another very hard day, Dave.
Just take in this atmosphere now of the Tour de France. These masses of people in his natural grandstand watching Pantani riding in to try and get his second stage victory in the Tour de France on the Alpe d'Huez. Reese now 4 kilometres to go, and way up there in the distance Pantani has done enormous damage. What's it like, Stephen, as you come down those last final climbs and you can see the village of the Alpe d'Huez ahead of you?
Well, yeah, first impression as well, are we going up there? You can see the actual terrain, the actual climb where you're going, because people line the road all the way up. So from right down you can see it all. It's incredible, but unfortunately you got to get through there. But all these people inside the road, it helps you.
That massive crowd has been with the riders all the way up the mountain. They came out last night. Men have been camping out here for 2 days to get the best vantage points. And Pantani here is being urged on by this vociferous crowd. It doesn't matter where you come from, whether you come from Spain, come from Belgium, come from Denmark, come from Great Britain, then you're prepared to cheer these giants of the road, suffering up this mountain. The sun is beating down, and when you realise that they've been riding now 2,400 kilometres they've covered so far, and this nutcase here, I hope the motorcycle runs him down.
That's just incredible, Dave. Like, I think people have a little bit more sense.
So they've done 1,500 miles in this Tour de France. This is stage 13 of the Tour. They've averaged over 100 miles a day. Yesterday's stage, although it was a short one of 55 kilometres, about 35 miles, was nevertheless very, very hard indeed. But look at the crowd here applauding these giants of the road.
It's really great to see Ulrich now putting in this effort here, because we got used to seeing Ulrich, even though we've only seen him for the last 2 years, we've always seen him with a straight face, just putting in some powerful performances. So it's really good to see a champion in full flight. We have Ulrich here now pulling faces. He's really hurting. He's not actually holding on to his yellow jersey because of the fact that Pantani being so far down on general. But at the same time, a yellow jersey does not like to be left behind, that's for sure, because everyone can say, well, oh, wasn't it lucky that Pantani fell off in the first week, otherwise he'd be on your back at this moment. So I think Ulrich is at 100% probably, but not going into the red. But I think it's a fair play to Mane for the courage he's showing here in just trying to keep the gap down to as small as he can between himself and Pantani. Very, very dangerous, Dave. You see Pantani swerving there a few times to avoid people. This tunnel here is very, very, very small. Look at the going to the flags here, Dave. It's absolutely incredible, people. People are getting worse and worse, I think, Dave.
Now the point of the race where the barriers are there to push the crowd back to allow Pantani a clear run into the finish. Still Virenque is pushing his way through, 1 minute back on Pantani, and wedged in between still is Ulrich, who one time was down 32 seconds. So Ulrich's fighting his way back, and soon the crowds will clear like Moses going through the Red Sea. It'll all part and they'll be in towards the finish.
That television camera there in front, I've shut them there. The motorbike is much too close to Pantani for my liking anyway.
We're looking at a man who burst upon the scene in 1994 when he took 2 stage victories in the Tour of Italy. A brilliant ride by him in that great race, and everybody said, who's this fellow here? And he went on to finish second place in the final of the Tour of Italy that year by his performances in the mountain. Then by 1995 he had 3 victories, including a stage in the Tour of Switzerland, a stage here on the Alpe d'Huez in the Tour de France, another one of the stage in the Tour de France at Gouzet-Neige. He crashed out in the October of that year, and he was sidelined, and since then Pantani has been wishing and looking for the chance to get back on the mountains he likes best of all, and he's right at home here. His father was out on the course further down to cheer the son through. What an amazing man. He plays a guitar, he goes down to the local cafe and sings. He's also interested in art. He does his own art shows as well, but he's showing here on the Alpe d'Huez that undoubtedly is the most gifted climber in the Tour de France on stage 13.
Well, in my opinion, Dave, from after living through and cycling through the last generation, the last decade, I think that Pantani is the best climber of this generation anyway. Since 1980, since the reign of Van Impe, since Van Impe retired, I think Pantani is the most impressive climber and pure climber that I've ever seen. Whatever about Verhank winning the Mountains jersey overall and everything else, like I think that Robert Miller or Pantani, in my opinion, would equal the likes of Verhank any day.
They're true climbers. They're the sort of people that are born like that. This man, he has to haul his body, as did Miguel Indurain, up the big climb. Not true climbers, but they use their power. They have enormous power output, great lungs to breathe in the oxygen, a big heart to pump round the blood. A recovery is all the important thing, but now he's dropping back. He's fought his fight, and he's now dropped back to 43
seconds, Dave, yeah.
No, they're saying 22. They said 42, but I just heard 22. I'm sure it's 22. We'll just check that for you, by the way. I thought they said 22 on my headphones. We had a 22 and a 42 call, but no doubt about who's going to win the stage at the moment, with 2 kilometres to go for Verhank, and Pantani's way down the road, probably well over a minute now on Verhank. And Verhank then looking to try and get the stage. Not going to be. This man's romping home to victory.
In saying that, Dave, if you remember Alpe d'Huez on a number of occasions, riders coming into win, there's always the left-hand corner at the end of it, where sometimes the cars go straight into the car park, whereas it's happened more than one occasion that the rider has followed the cars into the car park. But I think now that Pantani has won the stage before, he knows Alpe d'Huez very well, it'll not happen to him today.
And that is a quick view of Pantani chipping the toes of the people on the side of the road. It seems that he's not over yet by any means. Let's hope he doesn't fall off. He's really riding himself into oblivion here. We saw a quick view of Bjorn Ries down the road, who's managed to get away from Casagrande, but all the top 5 men at the moment are splattered all over this mountain, and further on down the other riders, the domestics, are now grovelling their way up as Pantani romps in the final kilometre.
Ulrich on the big ring, Dave, the big chain ring. I was saying that this part of the climb is more for a strong rider. Ulrich now is giving it everything. I think, in my opinion now, I think, Dave, you can, Walter Gutterford or Jan Ulrich can say what they want, but he's giving more than 100% here, Dave. He wants to get back, close down the time on Pantani, and he seems to be actually doing it, Dave, because if there was 40-odd seconds down a few minutes ago, I think it's actually less now.
Now, I'm sure the call we got 2 wrong, one call, 1 right, 1 wrong, and I think 42 was wrong. I think 22, because he's been hovering around. He only dropped back to 32, went back to 24, then to 22, and I don't think Ulrich has lost that amount of time. I didn't put my watch on it on this particular point here.
Finishing very, very strong, Dave. Look at the power he's giving out, Dave.
But Pantani riding through. I've not seen crowds like this before. In the background you can see the snow-covered tops of the Alps. But this man here, the sun on his back, riding into a spectacular victory. The second time he has won on the Alpe d'Huez. The first Italian to win was Fausto Coppi in 1952. This is the 20th time that the Tour de France has finished on the Alpe d'Huez. And now Pantani, the last victory in 1995. He's going to make a double of this one. Only Sotomuk has finished up here twice in the lead before, and Kuiper has only finished twice in the lead before and winners. So we had 3 men that have done the double, and now join that exclusive ranks of the climbers, the Zotemuks, the Kuipers, the winners, and the specialist climbers who performed on this mountain. Is Pantani, his second stage victory here at the Alpe d'Huez.
Fabulous ride by Pantani, Dave.
And he looks like he has come back, Stephen. He's riding himself tremendously fast, isn't he, here, which I think will distance him further again from Vironk.
It will. I'd say probably at the end of the day, probably be about 28 seconds down on Pantani at the end. So it just shows that he's actually giving it everything in the final 3 kilometers.
It's hurting, you can see it, but he's not letting those few vital seconds go without a fight. Even though he's still king of the pile, he's still got that yellow jersey. He's keen as possible to try and get through, minimising his deficit on Pantani. 46 seconds it was as Vironk starts to come up now into the finishing straight. Remember this morning, Vironk then was 5:42 down on Ulrich. He's lost a bit more time now as Vironk on Ulrich, but Pantani is definitely closing the gap.
He's finished strong, David. Vironk has finished strong. When I saw Vironk getting dropped earlier on, I would have thought he'd lost a lot more. So he surprised me, Dave. He's really fought very hard now to keep the gap down to minimum.
You've been watching again an epic stage on Eurosport. These men battling their way up this mountain. The camera just picks up the riders going across the line, but we can't really show you, but I hope the helicopter does. The unbelievable climb that they've come up. And here then with Bjorn Ries coming up now to Casagrande. These two have been playing cat and mouse on the climb up. Casagrande has got back to Bjorn Ries. Bjorn Ries who started this morning in 4th spot at 8 minutes and 1 second. He was just 1 minute and 10 seconds ahead of Pantani, so he's lost his place to Pantani. Pantani has now leapfrogged over Ries. He will have leapfrogged over Olano because he started this morning 1 minute 11 over Olano, did Pantani, so he's moved up now into 3rd spot. But Ries has lost some more time on the yellow jersey, but Casagrande I think might well have moved up. He went from 9th the day before yesterday to 7th yesterday. He could well move up into probably 4th spot. Casagrande, the Seiko rider in the red, has done another great ride. And he's determined to fight Ries to the line too. Casagrande, who got a bit dropped at one point, has now come back and he's going to take the 4th spot then, ahead of Bjorn Ries, 2 minutes and 26 seconds down.
It's a really Italian day today. Here we are now with Volpi. Is it coming in there, Dave?
The rest of the Mercato Nuno team, they've made a good job. We didn't get told about all this. In fact, certainly Olano's been pushed out, hasn't he? He's not made it with this lot at all.
Udo Bolt is there as well, David, 3rd man from the Telecom team.
So what on earth has happened to Olano? There's Madouas for the Lotto team, Udo Bolts and 2 of Pantani's teammates coming across the line now to finish.
Jalabert Davis coming in. Hasn't done a bad ride, Jalabert Davis.
Yeah. So the 2 riders from Mercato Nuno were Conti and Chabasson and Baetzeberg. And here comes Olano with Jalabert at 3:22. Also just finishing across the line was Fincanto from Roslotto, and here comes Escartin now. He really has suffered today. Look at this, 3:37.
He has, Dave, but also like in the first 10 there isn't that much time really dividing them, because I would have thought in the way that the fireworks start at the front of the hill, I would have thought there would have been a lot more time between these first guys here. Jalabert wasn't even in looking at the start of the hill, and he only lost some 3 minutes. So, and also here as well as Escartin. So I think that I'm very surprised to see the gaps are actually so small.
But still though, Escartin, who started this morning just a couple of minutes behind Pantani, has now lost another 4 minutes. So Pantani is a hero of the day, whilst the rest of the riders fight their way up the climb. Groups of riders coming in, thankfully, to finish this stage of 203 kilometres, that's about 120 miles. But the Victor Pantani now receiving the plaudits and congratulations, all concerned. Great ride by him. and the rest of the riders coming out. It looks like Eric Broeking too.
Eric Broeking there as well. I'm glad to see Eric Broeking there riding his last tour. It's great to see him up there. Okay, he lost 7 minutes, but for somebody that was brought into the Tour de France at the last minute to replace Johan Brunel, it's a good performance for Johan.
I think in the background there is that Jean-Claude Killian.
It is, yeah.
The left-hand side, the great skier. He's probably very much at home in this part of the world, isn't he?
Well, Jean-Claude Killian is now the boss of the Tour de France setup. So Jean-Claude normally comes along on the big important stages. So we see Pantani here in slow motion. Fabulous effort by Pantani today.
This certainly isn't a pointed occasion, Stephen, because not only did Pantani win, he's now won twice on the Alpe d'Huez, as did Henning Kuiper. He won twice in 77 and 78. Zolderberg won twice in 76 and again in 79. And we had Winnen, who won this race, the Dutchman again, in 81 and 83. Pantani won in 95. Fascinating if we come back here and he can do the triple, because nobody else has had three successes up here, but he keeps this sort of performance up. When you think that this man was so badly injured in October, just over 18 months ago, that they said, look, he'll never walk, and then they had to repair his leg, pin it together.
You look at his right leg here, Dave, you can see the lumps and bumps and a bit of deformed. Like, it does look a little bit kind of worrying when you see it up close, but it's still fairly effective, Dave. It still has a little bit of power there.
But the pain and the suffering he went through, they mended his leg, they kept operating on it, building bone graft back in again, and they had to put him in a swimming bath to make sure his muscles didn't all disappear, so he could swim and swim and swim. And there just shows you that the work done by the surgeons has paid off, and he's come in 47 seconds ahead of Veronk, Veronk back in 1:27. So I'm sure that the surgeons, the people in Italy, because it's such a big sport out there, must be patting themselves on the back and saying, hey, we did a good job, lads.
Well, they can, because like in a short period, like 18 months may sound a lot, but in cycling terms, like being off your bike for 6 months or 7 months, like it means it normally takes at least 3 times that to get any kind of condition back at all. Whereas Pantani has not only gotten condition back, he's had a great season so far. He rode very well earlier on in the year in Criterium International. He had a good ride in the Giro. There's a real kind of expression of content on his face there as he punched the air as he crossed the line.
And Ulrich then taking yet again the flowers for the man wearing the yellow jersey, and certainly as far as he's concerned, he defended that yellow jersey in superb style today, so he keeps the yellow jersey yet again. There's not been a German rider win the Tour de France since 1903. They've certainly had hatfuls of yellow jerseys being worn by people like Didi Tura and Rudi Altig, Klaus-Peter Thaler, etc. But nevertheless, this man now, he said his ambition one day was to wear the yellow jersey, preferably into Paris, but at the moment he's got up the Alpe d'Huez. He's got another big hard day ahead of him tomorrow, and certainly he's shown that he hasn't lost any strength from that time trial. He hurt himself yesterday to dominate the race, to win the time trial, and really put his mitts on that yellow jersey in such a way he looks at the moment unbeatable. But it's always possible. You have a bad day, you just missed the right break, and with someone like Pantani, you never know what the little part's going to do next. Quick look then to see what time he lost on Pantani, and it was in fact at the end just on 47 seconds. That's the overall classification. Pantani has leapfrogged over Rees and Olano. Look at the gaps opening up further back. But if I was Veronk, I wouldn't sleep too carefully tonight, knowing about the mountain climb tomorrow, and I'd be worried that my second place might be under pressure.
Well, there's not only tomorrow, Dave, there's also Morzine, but I think tomorrow with the final of the Courchevel, it's not a finish like today, so Pantani might find it a little bit more difficult to get away from the likes of Virenque, and tomorrow's hill will also be more suitable to riders like Ulrich. So tomorrow there's many more things to see here.
Well, as he receives his awards up there and the applause of the crowd, we're going to take a short commercial break. Don't go away then. More coming up on Eurosport.
Pantani. There we see Virenque getting stopped. We see Virenque going, Pantani going on his own. Very, very courageous effort here by Pantani, going from the start at 13 kilometers to the top. Dropping Virenque first of all, then dropping Ulrich.
see the expression on Pantani's face there as he gets the water. Here you see something which is very, very dangerous here. It's happening more and more on the Tour de France. The crowds are overcrowding the streets here. You can see everybody putting boards and everything else in front of them. And then you see Pantani here, the final moment, as he finally gets to the finish line here in Alpe d'Huez. He punches the air. That's some face. They call him Le Petit Diable, which means the little devil. You see the face on him there was an incredible expression of content on his face.
Pantani didn't perform too well in the earlier climbs of the Tour de France. He's now moving up. He's fourth on the King of the Mountains competition. Richard Virenque, though, has got a tremendous number of points, and he looks unbeatable for the polka dot jersey. The man who's been unbeatable in the sprint, Zabel, coming up for his flowers and another green jersey.
Zabel, we saw him doing his job early on the stage, and especially down to the foot of Alpe d'Huez. We saw him leading up Jan Ullrich to the foot of the hill, pulling over and kind of tipping him on the shoulder and saying, "Okay, boy, it's over to you now." But we'll be seeing more of Zabel now, not tomorrow nor the next day, but next Tuesday, Wednesday, as we get down into down near Colmar.
Well, tomorrow's stage very short, in fact, just 148 kilometres in all, and it goes up to finish at Courchevel, the Bourg d'Oisans. You see there that lake in the background just behind our caption. That's where the silver mines have been over the years. But the man who dug for gold today was Pantani, who came out on top. Can he do it again tomorrow? We're going to be on air live right the way through from 1 o'clock through to just after 5 o'clock. There'll be motorcycling as well. As we're on air, we'll be dapping in and out of the Tour de France. So you're looking forward to that one, Stephen?
I am indeed. A lot more than the ride, as I say.
Well, it's a tough old day tomorrow. Can Pantani do the double? Can he get 2 stages on the trot? Can he, in fact, close the gap on Virenque? I hope you'll join Stephen Roche, myself, David Duffield tomorrow to see this man in action, to see the crowds out there really watching an epic Tour de France. But the man in yellow at the moment, Ullrich, still looks like he's going to be the man to beat into Paris. But you never know in bike racing. As Pantani has shown, you can suddenly go good. You can grab back lots of minutes on everybody else. Tonight we're going to have the highlights on Eurosport at 10 o'clock. And then tomorrow the stage, Bourg d'Oisans, Courchevel, with some motorcycling thrown in. It's worth watching. Join Stephen and myself for David Duffield tomorrow afternoon. Until then, à bientôt, à demain.
Au revoir.